So in this video, I'm going to show you how I halter broke an untouched 11-month-old stud colt. We got him in over the weekend, and this is my first session with him. So I started doing approach and retreat. So I walk in towards him, and when he looks at me or walks towards me, I walk away. So he's quite nervous. He's never been handled. He's never been touched by humans. He was actually just weaned from his mom before we brought him home. So he really has no idea what I want or what I'm about. So I want to teach him that he has the power in this situation, that if he looks at me, all the pressure that I'm putting on him will go away. And that will eventually get him to where he can follow me around, and it also gets him to where he'll move his hip away from me and face me when I'm around him, and that's safer for anyone who's going to be around a reactive young horse. And this guy is quite nervous and very reactive, and you can see he's keeping a pretty good distance away from me at the beginning. So after a couple hours, I got to the point where I could get close enough to him to touch him with the whip that I have in my hand. So I start at the withers, and I just scratch him there like his mom would scratch him. And I start working my way over his back and up his neck, and he's still fairly nervous of me here. He doesn't mind the touching, but he's not too sure about my hand actually touching him. So I approach and retreat with the hand a little bit, and I actually touch him with the whip and my hand at first, and then I will take the whip away here in a second and just scratch him with my glove. He's looking away a little bit. He's not too sure about this, but he very quickly realizes that he's itchy, and it feels pretty good when the human scratches on him. And I'm very careful to stay up by his shoulder. I don't want to get back by his hip because he can spin around pretty quick if he wanted to kick me. I'm also conscious of his head. He does like to nip. He's a little stud, and he is a little bit mouthy. But overall, he's pretty good. He's just a little nervous, so there's just a different view here. And I never take that whip away and say, go straight for his hip or straight for his neck. I always start at the withers and scratch the withers, and then move my way back and forth and around. And if he doesn't like any spot, I go straight back to the withers where he's comfortable. So there's a little bit of footage missing here. I didn't have anyone to record it, and I spent a few hours in there with him that day. So I ended up getting a rope over his back and making sure that he was good with the feeling of the rope over his back, and then I eventually slid it up over his head, and I got him to where he started to give to the pressure of that rope around his neck like you would a halter. And then in order to prepare him for the halter going over his head, I got him to where I could run my hand up his neck, and I could start scratching around his ears, scratching under his chin, scratching his face, and also moving my hand over his neck to the other side of where I'm standing. So that was pretty important because all of a sudden there's a hand on the other side of him. Then I slid the rope up over his nose to get him used to that feeling, and you can see he's really starting to wonder what's going on, and he's smelling me, and he's actually a little bit pushy with his head, so I am careful not to let him push me around. He's a pretty curious little guy. So then I get the halter, and the halter's pretty jingly. It's got some metal buckles on it, so I get him used to that sound. I rub him with the halter, make sure that he knows it's okay. He's pretty good about it touching him. He's pretty good about me slipping it over to the other side. And again, there was some time that passed between the last clip and this clip. I wouldn't just go straight into this. There was quite a bit that was going on in between. But I'm always reassuring him, scratching him. It's shedding season, so he is quite itchy. He's nipping me there a little bit. I'm not going to let him do that. Even though I want him to be close to me, I'm not going to let him nip because that just turns into a big problem when he's older. And he hadn't been in with any other horses. He was just in with his mom. So far as I know, he may not have been taught that he's not allowed to nip other horses. Now, he wasn't really happy about that lead going over his nose, the piece of the halter there. So I went back to the rope For whatever reason, he didn't mind the rope, but he did not like the feeling of the halter. So we're just going back and we're just going to work on that. Taking it off, putting it on, slipping it over his nose. He's not super good about me touching that soft part of his nose where his whiskers are. It's a pretty sensitive area. And then he gets pretty good about it. So I go back to the halter again. Then I just start rubbing the halter on his face now. Getting him used to that different material and that sound. And he's yawning a little bit here to release some of his stress. I like to see that. And he's not holding it. And he does a lot of licking and chewing, so that's really good. And then I start rubbing my hand over his face. And this took about 20 or 30 minutes before he was really okay with that halter being around his nose. So I'm going to get ready to slip that halter over his nose here in a second. And when I get it over his head, the last thing that I want to do is put pressure on it, because his first instinct is going to be to pull against that pressure. So I just want to slip it over and try not to pull on. He's pulling against it. He doesn't know what's going on. So I just sort of hold on, try not to put any pressure, and then gently buckle it up. He's doing pretty good about that. He really likes to be scratched under the neck, so that's a good reward for him. Now I'm going to get ready to clip the lead rope onto the halter and start getting him used to the feeling of giving to the pressure on the halter. I'm going to get that rope off his neck here. He's pretty curious. He's always looking to me to see what's going on. Clip that on nice and easy, and then slip that rope off without putting any pressure on the halter. It's natural for a horse to want to pull against pressure or lean into pressure. We actually have to teach them to yield to pressure. So I'm going to pick up very lightly on that rope, and I'm not going to pull on his head. I'm just going to suggest that he follows the feel on that halter, and he's sort of resisting it there. He's not sure what's going on. This is his first time with a halter. So I ask him to step, and as soon as he gives me even 1 inch with his foot, I release all the pressure on the rope. He's yawning there again, licking and chewing. I ask a little bit. He's looking. He steps 1 inch towards me, so I let the pressure go. I ask again. I wait on him, and then he gives, and I give back. And we just do a lot of this in baby steps. There, that was a really good step. He's licking and chewing. He understands now. He understands that we're not going to hurt him, and he's starting to really give to the pressure on that rope now. Once I could get my hands on him, he actually gave to that pressure real easy and started following me around. It was just the initial getting close enough to touch him that took a couple hours. He's following me around, leading really nice by the end of it.